Yeah, by like 2 days later, they're like, can't you shut your people up? Oh, really? Yeah, they're calling. They're bothering our staff. Oh, what a pity. Your constituents are calling you. Oh, how alarming is that? You actually have to answer the telephone. Amazing. A couple days after that, we don't have time to meet with you. Okay, well then I'll just sit here and wait right outside the gate. Well, you know, the funny thing is the men's room is right outside the gate on the other side. So one way or the other, I kind of triangulate it and I shoot 308 to take their pick. You want to meet me in person in your office, or I'm at the men's room. Take your pick. This matters that much. It's not that I don't like to hear everybody else, y'all must need a break. Right? So it's Sunday afternoon, and here we are in the heart of, where are we? You know, I'd love to say we're in the heart of a Republican stronghold. Wouldn't that be a nice way to start our Sunday afternoon? But you know, the reality of what, unfortunately, my job has become this afternoon is for us to have a little truth talk, based on what I heard the good senator say a little earlier today. So maybe there's something you don't know that he doesn't want you to know. And it's partly this. Scope is now 50 years old, and we just did our first massive lobbying effort in Albany. I spent 2 weeks on the ground, and in the second week we were bringing in volunteers, we were bringing in activists, we were bringing in plaintiffs from the Montgomery lawsuit on 2-hour shifts and sending them through the buildings. So Scope actually grew up a whole new level last June. And we did it because we came to the end of the third legislative session, post-SAFE Act, in which absolutely nothing has been done by anybody in the Assembly or the Senate to change the status of the law or any one of its subdivisions. So what the senator neglected to tell you was that after rent control passed, he threw a party at the Senate gate. He sponsored the Italian Ice Party to celebrate passage of rent control unanimously in the New York State Senate. And he had men and women with trays, with little white cups, with Italian ice on them, that they were walking around to everybody in the Senate gate area and to everybody in the Senate waiting area, except for myself and Kevin Sisson, chair of Shinnecock County Scope. I have photographs. I wrote it up in the Scope firing line. And that senator just stood here this afternoon and fed you a line of crap that he did anything to protect your rights in the New York State Senate this session or any other session. The Republican conference voted unanimously in favor of rent control this June in exchange for nothing. Absolutely nothing. How else could they have done it if they really wanted to stand with us? You give the Democrats as many votes as they needed for a majority vote on the bill, and every one of the Republicans remaining could have voted no. They could have voted on our behalf. They could have stood on the floor on their feet in opposition to the rent control bill. They said nothing, they did nothing, and DeFrancisco sponsored the Italian Ice Party to celebrate how they did it. So if you think we do not have a call to action as citizens of upstate, needing to stand up, needing to run primaries, needing to register to vote, needing to march our feet to the polls, and flip the lever, well, then I don't know what else I can bring you to activate you. I just don't. Senator Seward is one of the ones that DeFrancisco wants to point at. And it is true that Senator Seward is actually sending out more mail than maybe anybody else among this group of upstate Republican senators, including a mailer, one side of it says, "Oh, we the people," like as if he's one of us. Really? So I came up with a little bumper sticker. I brought some with me today. This is my response to Senator Seward's mailing on my own dime. His mailing's on our dime because it's franking privileges. We paid for it. This one is on my dime because this is my flip off to him. We the people are the revolution. We have the power to vote them out of office. They've already been reelected once since the SAFE Act passed. Now, how did that happen? I don't even know. The Second Amendment has not been under the kind of threat in its history since 2013. That's part of it. Although we know ourselves to be Second Amendment supporters, we believe ourselves to be activists, we've had a lot of learning to do. We've had to figure out how to come together, how to do long signs, how to get ourselves on Republican and conservative committee positions, to start holding feet to the fire for candidates and so forth. We've had to start a political action committee, a PAC, that Scope manages to try to raise the kind of funds that our 501c4 can then apply to candidates running for office. So the learning curve for the past 3 years has been steep. But we've climbed that hill and we crested it in June. How do we know we crested it? Because not one of the senators wants to see me anymore. The first week they're all calling me honey. You know how much I love that. When a man in a position of authority is going, "Oh honey, I wish I could do something for you." Yeah, so do I. So do it. Right? It's a big deal. You think I'm so cute, we want to get together, you want to like cozy up to me? Yeah, do it then. Impress me, right? Yeah, by like 2 days later, they're like, "Can't you shut your people up?" Really? Yeah, they're calling. They're bothering our staff. Oh, what a pity. Your constituents are calling you. Oh, how alarming is that? You actually have to answer the telephone. Amazing. A couple days after that, we don't have time to meet with you. Okay, well then I'll just sit here and wait right outside the gate. Well, you know, the funny thing is the men's room is right outside the gate on the other side. So one way or the other, right now you triangulate it and I shoot 308 to take their pick. If you want to meet me in person in your office, or I'm at the men's room, take your pick. This matters that much. I'll find you. I'm trying to put on my nice face, which is what I tried to do in Albany. It only worked for the first couple days, then they had that figured out, so I stopped trying to look nice. What have we also been doing, though, that the good senators have not been doing, that now they're trying to claim credit for? And I heard Senator DeFrancisco do it again. He's standing up here talking about lawsuits. They don't have anything to do with these lawsuits. Nothing. There's not a single member from the Assembly or the Senate, most of whom are attorneys, who's actually representing anybody in any lawsuit concerning the Second Amendment or the SAFE Act, or for that matter, even a handgun license. They're not in courtrooms with us. Assemblyman No.J. is the only one out of 212 who's got his name on a lawsuit. He's a co-plaintiff in the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association lawsuit. Thank you, Bill. He's the only man or woman in the legislature with the nerve to put their name on a lawsuit. What? Because the governor might see it? Who's the only other person? Senator Marchione, Kathy Marchione, filed what's called an amicus brief at the district court level for the NYSERPA lawsuit. Did not file one to Second Circuit, but did file to district court. So she put in her 2 cents. And that's it. That's absolutely it. So when the good senator stands up here and says, "Oh yeah, you know, stuff going on in the judiciary," I gotta bet that Scott Bish is equally, although he's so much more diplomatic than me, I shouldn't call you out like that, I'm sorry, but I bet he's having the same kind of internal conniption I'm having. Y'all are not even donating $5 to try to cover the expenses for this lawsuit. So what kind of nerve do you have to stand up here and claim as if that's part of the solution that they're part of? No how, no way. No, that's why we've got organizations like NYSERPA and SCOPE, like the NRA, like Near Revolution, 3%, Oath Keepers. That's why we are all out here every day, is to bear witness to the truth of what's really happening in Albany, and spread that message out there, and to trigger the alarm of activism. Why? Because we're on the night before battle really begins. We've had lawsuits pending for about 3 years. Federal cases take a long time. They simply do. They're complicated, they're big, it's a lot of paperwork. The NYSERPA lawsuit came straight out of the gate about 2 months after the SAFE Act passed. So that's March of 2013. We had Judge Scranton's decision out of Buffalo, December of a year later. We had oral arguments to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals this past December. We're at just about that point that any day now we're going to get that Second Circuit Court of Appeals decision. For the New York case, also for the companion case out of Connecticut, and without a doubt the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals will issue its decision on the Maryland case in short order too. This will be the two, if you will, the Second and Fourth Circuit, the two most important decisions since Heller in 2008. Any day now. What else is happening any day now? Well, I'm back in court on Montgomery this week, on Thursday at 3:30. So y'all hold a prayer visual at 3:30 for me, because the state has 4 attorneys alone. Then there's Suffolk County, which has an attorney. Then there's the hospital, so it's kind of me versus 6 attorneys. But, you know, like I said, it's 3 away, long range, we're good. We're in on Thursday afternoon on the state's motion to dismiss the Montgomery case. The state's essential position is this: once you're reported, you're done. You have no right to know you've been reported. You certainly have no right to due process to get that corrected, removed, changed, nothing. The state does not believe it's a violation of your HIPAA rights to have the New York State Police in the examining office with you and your doctor. They think that's just fine. But they think it's a violation of HIPAA for them to tell you if you're in their database. Clearly, they seem to have a misunderstanding of HIPAA. So far, SCOPE has sent in more than 3,500 Freedom of Information requests as part of Stop the Secrecy campaign. People just like you all across the state saying, I want to know if I'm in this database. What is it they've said back to us? Oh yeah, we'll let you know in a year. See, they were afraid to send the violation of the HIPAA letter thing once we started Stop the Secrecy. That was the letter they were sending to me when I had my private clients sending in letters saying we want to know if we're in the database. The original New York State Police letter to my clients was it would be a violation of HIPAA for us to tell you if you're in this database. Then we brought the army of 3,500 people through SCOPE, and who knows how many thousands more who sent in that request on their own directly to the police. And then they started saying, oh, we better just delay this whole thing. About 750 people a week get reported currently into ISARS, the database crested over the 75,000 mark by best estimates some months ago. Assuming that the state loses their motion to dismiss, already filed with Judge Siragusa is my motion for preliminary injunction to shut down the entire ISARS reporting system while the case is pending and to notify every person in that database that they're in it. This may be our best shot at waking up the state of New York. The only reason we even know about ISARS is because less than 300 handgun license holders were in that database as of October of a year ago, meaning less than 1% of the people in that database. And among those 278 people was Don Montgomery, who called down to NRA General Counsel's office, who said, oh yeah, we know the attorney who wants to work on all the crazy issues, call her. Had him call me. Don has no medical history, has no mental health history, he's 30 years retired Suffolk County Police Department and a veteran. He couldn't sleep. Bill Nojay is talking about clean candidates. Our challenge, a civil liberty attorney, is finding plaintiffs with the right fact pattern. We could file 20 lawsuits this week. Truly, there are that many defects in the SAFE Act that would support very good constitutional law arguments. But you have to find the right plaintiffs with the right fact pattern in order to be able to bring that case forward. So, but for handgun license holders, we might never know about ISARs. So imagine what will happen when the other 99% of people in this database suddenly get a notice out of thin air. What if it's somebody on the governor's staff? What if it's one of his $50,000 donors? The odds are it's going to be somebody who's not a member of SCOPE, who may not be a political activist, who can get to the governor. So when I hear my friend Bill jokingly talk about starting his car, what I've been saying for a year is this: the governor can't lose the motion we filed. He can't risk the lid coming off this thing. He's got a freight train out of control. And that's another reason that we know that the SAFE Act was flawed from inception. This has nothing to do with public policy or safety. He didn't think for 1 second about the ramifications of anything he was doing, even to his own political career. Not for 1 second did it cross his mind that somebody might end up in that database who would turn around and bite him in the ass. Yeah, think about that for a minute, Andrew, in case you got somebody in the room who's going back to report to him on what all we've been saying this afternoon. Just think about that for 3 seconds, right? So we've got the 2 federal cases. We've got rulings that are going to be coming out in both cases any day. That's going to cause its own tremors. SCOPE also has various lawsuits going on concerning documents we're trying to get our hands on. So we've got the registry statistics. Hallelujah. We've got a white paper that will come out about the registry statistics in a couple of weeks. Most of you probably know we do the white paper series. So we've had 3 papers out so far. This will be the 4th. I've got a stack of copies over there. If you've got $5 to throw in the jar to help cover SCOPE's printing costs, fabulous. We have been joined also by organizations now like the National Shooting Sports Foundation, Glock and CZUSA, Turnbull has just come on, Gun Owners of America. So we're growing in terms of getting the facts out there. The registry, couldn't agree with Assemblyman Nojay more. It's yet another failed policy of the Cuomo administration. He wasn't even smart enough to pay attention to the fact that Canada repealed a national registry. They had been running for more than 15 years at a cost of $1 billion. They did that in 2012. Do you think somebody on the governor's staff would have noticed that the nation of Canada, just to the north, announced the repeal and the destruction of all of the registry records, and then had their National Director of Public Safety stand up and say not one life was spared because of this registry? Canada estimated 75% compliance on a national level for their long gun registry. Here in New York, less than 1/2 of 1% of persons over the age of 18 registered a so-called assault weapon.
Yes.
The governor doesn't study anything. Just nothing. And the problem is, then we're left to pick all this up, and at the moment we're left to pick it all up without the legislature, and so yes, we're marching through the judiciary to try to get the records to get out to the public, to hit that 3 to 7% of voters. That's our sweet margin, the people who determine elections, who might not even make up their mind until the day before. There are so many people I meet who don't have even basic information. They want to know. Oh, you shoot? Oh, you're a woman who shoots? Really? Apparently that means I've got a little Batgirl cape on or something. It's really cool, right? When you're checking out of the grocery store, talk to the clerk for a couple minutes. When you're walking out town, wear your scope attire, right? Flash your shooter on the back. Talk to somebody while you're pumping gas. For 3 years, we've been talking to each other. We got this. We do. But we got to find those few voters out there that are going to determine the next election. That means we have to start talking to strangers. Which means every one of you should have one of these in your pocket and in your purse. Right? It's $25 to become a Scope member. I mean, how cheap is that? And you can gift a membership. And that's how the governor of the state of New York came to be a member of Scope last February. No fooling. 25 people gave $1 each. Steve Alstad, our statewide president, calls me, well, you're legal counsel. Can we really do this? Why not? Poor Steve. You know, he's just so much more grounded than I am. I'm like, heck yeah. So we did. We sent it off. So we recently got some communication back from the governor, respectfully declining coming to the 50th anniversary dinner in October. So you know that mailing that we all got of sign up and get your ticket. Well, apparently somebody actually read it on his staff, and they sent a letter back, declining. So I have a task for all of you to do today. Grab a piece of paper, a pen, number 10 envelope, postage stamp. I'll spot you the postage. Heck, if you want to do it all right now, I'll bundle them all up. Send a letter off to the governor. We started it at Wayne County Scope. I'd like to continue it here today. We're asking the governor to donate his Remington to be raffled at the 50th anniversary dinner. And my logic is pretty simple. The campaign is Disarm Cuomo. Hashtag it if you're on Twitter. Put it on Facebook. It's just, we got to just drive those algorithm drones crazy. My logic is pretty simple. He wants to claim he stood at Savannah Dew with Mike Bradman and company with his Remington, and that's like the only photograph that exists of the governor with a firearm, right? I've never seen another one. I even got in touch with a friend of Mike Bradman recently and said, hey, any of you see him discharge that firearm? I mean, did he ever actually shot anything? No. Nobody's ever seen him fire this Remington, or any other gun for that reason. So, my logic is kind of simple. You're not standing with us, and the Second Amendment is not a publicity stunt. Don't you stand at a microphone and tell us you're a gun owner, and you stand with us. That is just bullshit. Even on a Sunday, and I'm really sorry, and I'll make it up in the car on the way home. So, lay it down. Lay down your Remington and walk away from it. If any of you have read his autobiography, that's the safest thing that could happen in this instance, otherwise somebody should be reporting him to ISARS. So send him a letter. Say you heard he was considering it. That'll really make him wonder. And ask him to donate it to Scope. I'm fed up. I'm at that point. I don't know about you all. We've all been in this fight for 3 years. We've been in it longer. We've been hearing every pretty word there is to hear, including the word honey. And at this point, we simply have to become the revolution to be the agent of change. That's just what it comes down to. And we can do it. Small steps like a letter to the governor. It's kind of debugging a bit. Big steps like going to Albany for the first time ever to knock on the door of your elected official and say, you are required to represent me. And this is my position on this. Go sit in a courtroom of somebody who's been charged with a misdemeanor or a felony violation of the SAFE Act. Serve on a jury for exactly that kind of case. We can be everywhere as people. We can take this whole thing over tomorrow. We have more inroads than they do. The only thing they have that we don't is the vote on the floor. That's it. That's the only thing they've got. Now, it is everything. That's the only thing they've got. Is everybody feeling like, oh yeah? I hope. I'm looking at you thinking, okay, I've either put them to sleep or scared them to death, or we're going to do this thing. So I'm hoping it's the latter. I'm here for questions, absolutely, on any of the cases. I know it's been a long afternoon, a lot of speakers, so maybe we'll just do all that informally. Thank you for everything that you're doing. I might be out front in the courtroom, but y'all are with me. I feel you with me every day. And I cannot thank you enough for all of your good wishes. I really can't. Wouldn't be happening without all of you. So keep up the fight. Keep after the governor. And just remember, we are the revolution.
Paloma, I got one of those, I sent in a FOIL request, and I got the same thing everybody else got back, saying it would be about a year. What is the typical, like a normal FOIL request time frame, or isn't there really a typical time?
The statute provides that the government agency can have a reasonable amount of time, and reasonable is defined as a set of factors that can include volume. So that's partly why these letters keep citing the numbers of requests that they are getting. There is a certain amount of pride, I think, in breaking the system. Legitimately, our 3,500 plus scope requests alone are more than the New York State Police get in a year, total. So we've done a really good job. The question, of course, for scope is whether we file a lawsuit to try to challenge that should be sooner. I do know from the Montgomery versus Paloma lawsuit materials provided by the state of New York that there is more than one database. There are several different printout screens that they delivered to us for each one of the, for 4 of the 5 plaintiffs in that case. But truly, it's electronic. What are we talking about? Even if I say 15 minutes per person, you do the math. It's not more than a year from now. So, it's a little bit that plus and minus of where do we put scope resources. We do have 3 other lawsuits. Scope is very close to progressing at the moment. And, quite frankly, we need more lawyers. Like, try not to laugh too hard. I never thought you'd heard somebody say that, but we really don't have attorneys. I mean, Scott can back me up on that. We've got 3 teams, or 3 offices, if you will, together as a team on an serve a case, because it's that complicated. And then there's me. I've got 7 or 8 cases at the moment, and 2 more I'll be filing. And then Jim Ostrowski out of Buffalo, who just won the victory on getting the judge to direct the state to turn over 150 records concerning the scope rally that happened at the Albany Plaza. And that's pretty much it. So, resources are what they are. Yes?
Technical question. I have a World War II bring back pistol, Browning high-powered, 14-round magazine. What do you do with that? Supposing you're supposed to register the magazine, which has no serial number?
You do 2 things with that. First, you don't ask that question in public. Second, you make sure you're asking that question to me in a capacity as a private attorney so that confidentiality locks. Unless you're in the mood to become a conscientious objector. I am always recruiting plaintiffs. So either way, let's just talk a little separately. My friend was asking a hypothetical question. I won't repeat it so that it's not clear for the recording device. Is there anybody else who wants to now risk a question after that? Yes?
Well, my head is hurting over this one. You obviously were, I don't know what word on it, quite taken by Senator DeFrancisco's party to be through. And I'd like to understand more about why did you go to the party?
I don't know. about 4:30 on the afternoon of the vote, and we had been waiting for the rent control bill in print since just before noon. We still didn't have the bill in print, and the folding tables came out, and this sort of handmade sign taped to the table about the Italian iced party. So it was all a little bit confusing initially. You would have to put that question to the senator. What I know is when that bill came out, 62 pages, had not one word about the SAFE Act in it, not one word. So we can dial it up even a notch from there. I mean, what had we spent 2 weeks trying to do? Well, in the Assembly, there was a full repeal tied to rent control bill sponsored by New York State Assemblyman Pete Lopez, Scope Legislator of the Year. We could not get a single senator to number a same-as bill. I'm not even talking about we couldn't get it out of committee. I'm not talking about we couldn't get it onto the floor for a vote. I'm telling you, there was not one senator who would number a same-as bill to the Assembly bill. So I don't know what they were throwing a party about, but I know how I took it, because we were on the ground full-time for 2 weeks.
So, what do we make of that? Are you looking at him as a good guy or a bad guy?
To me, there's no difference between any of them. I don't differentiate between a one of them.
Really?
I just don't. The other thing, of course, that didn't happen is where was the Republican Party? They had an opportunity, so did the Conservative Party, to try to move the senators as well. And we had no political party presence on the ground either. So I think we learned a lot. I think we grew in sophistication. We now have very well-developed models that we can replicate. So when we talk about bills like an insurance bill, safe storage, and so forth, I think Scope is now in a very good position to continue those lobbying efforts for the, what I would call, smaller bills. But in terms of our ability to move forward a repeal bill, we're going to have to get different people in office who have the political courage to stand up to whoever is in office. Maybe it's not Governor Cuomo. Maybe he gets removed courtesy of Preet. I can only hope. But then you've got to deal with Lieutenant Governor Hochul becoming Governor Hochul. And what do we really know about her position? What if it gets worse? Right? Either way, the legislative branch has to be fortified so that we get true separation of powers, true system of checks and balances, a pushback from the legislature against the executive with the judicial branch, which is simply going to be slower, there's just no way around it, being the third leg of the stool. All right, I think y'all should just enjoy the whole rest of the afternoon. I'm not sure if there are additional speakers or not, but thank you so much for having me, and have a great rest of the day.